Hey guys, I apologize if you guys keep hopping on. My camera keeps crapping on my computer for some reason. So I'm going to do this from my phone. Hopefully this is all going through the way that it should be. I'm not sure what the issue was, but you gotta adapt and overcome, right? So here we are. So there's a couple things that we are going to talk about tonight, most of which has to deal with recovery. So before we do that, I'll obviously introduce myself a little bit. I had this stationed outside and it was nice and the trees were behind me and I was kind of starting my my Wag Unplugged weekend a little early, but for some reason I was having some issues, so we're going to kind of go from here, and I can talk about the notes that I want to have and go over the things that we need to go through and make this good for everybody. So I'll obviously introduce myself. I am Brad Giglio. I live in Traverse City, Michigan. I have been in this industry, I guess, for an extremely long time. I have been doing it for about 15 years. Personal training, nutrition, MMA, fighting when I was in the Army. Done a lot of different stuff. Done a lot of different things. So have a decent understanding of what it takes to recover. Being older, being 34, going to be 35 here pretty soon, those things tend to get a little bit more important. So this last year I've really kind of wanted to focus on being very cognizant of how I recover, the steps that I take, the things I need to do for myself in order to be able to push it each day. That to me has become very, very important. I was in the Army for about 6 years. Did some special forces stuff. I was an airborne infantry guy, deployed twice, jumped out of a lot of really, really, really good airplanes, all of which were fun, all of which were extremely taxing on the body, and they take that recovery very, very seriously as well, because they got to keep you working, they got to keep you moving, they got to keep you focused. So a couple of things that we're really going to talk about today as far as how recovery works. Obviously, you can jump on the internet. There are a million and two different things that you can research, that you can find, that you can see. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be bad. Some of them are going to be conflicting. Some of them are going to be the same. Just like working against gravity, everything is kind of what suits your purpose. Now, obviously, there's different ways to optimize, and there's different ways to be more purposeful for you, which is extremely important, and sometimes that takes time to figure out. But it's one of those things where if it's really important to you, you will take the time to prioritize it, pay attention, understand what you're eating, understand what you're doing, in order to really be able to recover to your highest potential. One of the things that I really found when I was doing my degree and working on exercise science is there's a lot of different facets to how people move, to how people recover, because obviously our bodies are completely different, and we all know that. We're all kind of different creatures. So one of the coaches that I had when I played at Central Michigan was, he didn't really necessarily talk about recovery. He always talked about rest, being restful, being very, very purposeful. So I kind of want to go through some of those things. I want to define some of these different elements that I think are important, and then we can kind of break down some of the more subtle nuances like nutrition and things like that, and obviously stuff that pertains more to our community. So one of the finest things as I started off doing this is I wanted to really kind of figure out where I wanted to go. So I wanted to define rest, and I wanted to define recovery. And rest is one of those things where it talks about, allowing your body to relax, to refresh yourself, and to recover strength. So that is something that, is different for everybody. For me, it's grabbing a book, listening to some meditation stuff before I go to bed, helps me kind of like figure out where my mind's at, allows me to kind of disconnect a little bit, unplug in a sense, right, Wag? And really kind of like bring my body down and find where I feel good. Now, recovery talks about specifically more the techniques or the actions that are taken in order to maximize your body's repair. Now, that can be a bunch of different things, which we're going to go over, but in order to really kind of, pay attention to those things, again, like you do with your with your nutrition, write it down. Start paying attention to the things that you're doing, how you feel the next day, why you feel good, why you feel bad. It's important. You're not just gonna, crush a deadlift one day and wake up and feel fantastic. Maybe you feel like crap and you don't know why. Kind of looking at those different systems that kind of go into all the different things that are working for you, or not working for you. It's extremely important. One of the things that I think is a big piece of rest, and I'm going to talk about rest. I'm not going to talk about recovery yet. I'm going to talk about rest. One of the things that we really think as humans, as people, is that we're always too busy. Oh, I hit the gym, I did this, I did that. To come home and actually relax and take care of myself, I'm too busy, I got too much stuff going on. Which in some cases could be true to an extent. But when you think about it, if you're someone who trains 5 days a week for 2 hours a day, all right, I'm not a mathematician, but that's 10 hours. You literally have about 150 hours left in the week to be working on your rest and be working on getting your body back to where it needs to be in order to be able to optimize your performance the next day. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to kind of speak for myself here, and I think most athletes will say the same thing. It's whenever you come into the gym, or if you're trying to lose weight, or whatever it is that you're trying to do in order to get your body better, to make yourself better, you need to optimize. You really need to take all those pieces that you've learned or put into place and do them to the best of your ability, or else you're missing a piece of the pie. Right? I had another coach in college who always talked about work and recovery of not being like an addition problem, of being more of a multiplication problem. So when you talk about work is your one and recovery is your one, 1 + 1 obviously equals 2. Not necessarily. It's more 1 × 1 = 1. So however much you work, you should equal that with recovery. And if you're not doing that, then you're missing the boat on some aspects of your training regimen or your training protocols, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. That goes with losing weight, that goes with maintaining weight, that goes with trying to gain quality weight. It's all extremely important. Now, kind of continuing with that theme, if I work out twice as much and I recover for 1, so if I'm working out 2 days and I take 1 day to really kind of like focus on recovering or certain aspects of it, 2 × 1 is 2. So you're not necessarily benefiting. Where if I work twice and I recover twice, 2 × 2 is 4. So really you have to be cognizant of how much you're recovering compared to how much you're working. If you're not doing that, then you're out of balance. And if you're out of balance, then you're behind the 8 ball and you're not optimizing all the different things that you're doing. So that's just really, really important to kind of like at least find in your mind and find the place that you want to go or how you need to do that. It's not easy. It's hard. There's a lot of things that are going on in people's days where we tend to forget about stuff. But finding those habits that work for you is what's really important. So as we're going through some of these elements and we're talking about some of these things, really be understanding, like I'm talking about me personally, some of the things that I do, some of the things that I've seen done. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It could. The best part about it, though, is maybe take things in smaller doses, track, again, be cognizant of what you're doing, look at what you're doing this week, how you felt, what you did next week, how you felt. All those pieces of feedback are extremely important. What does it really, really take to recover or be restful? There's many phases of recovery. We talk about muscle repair, we talk about chemical and hormone balance, nervous system repair, mental state stuff, and there's you can kind of just keep the list going on and on and on. But that's really what you need to take into consideration of what it actually takes to make yourself better. Yeah, I can go in and I can hit a bunch of bench press and I can push more weight than I've ever pushed. That's fantastic. But you've also just broken down more tissue in your body than you've ever broken down before too. So those things need to kind of be reciprocating of one another. Like I need to build and I need to rest. I need to build and I need to recover. If you're not doing that, then that PR bench that you just hit for X amount of reps at X amount of volume is fantastic, but the chances of you to continue that progress without proper recovery, without proper rest, isn't going to be non-existent. It's just not going to be optimal. You're not going to be getting the most out of your time, which is what most of us want to do when we're doing any of these kind of things. You know, the two biggest pieces of rest, right? So I started talking about rest and how that's a big piece and not so much the recovery. So two proponents of rest are recovery. Recovery is sleep essentially in your food. So you're like your nutrition, which being a part of a nutrition company, that obviously is a big thing for us. So those parts of that recovery process need to be as good as they can be. And obviously there's going to be days where it's not perfect, and there's going to be days where it's harder than others. But those are the parts that you really need to kind of like focus in on and learn how to prioritize what you need. If you don't get enough sleep at night, maybe take a nap, or meditate, or do something else to kind of like let your body calm down a little bit and find that restful place where your body can start restoring some of those things. So when I go through these main elements, again, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that's optimal. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you. Everybody's sleep cycles are different. How much sleep that you need is absolutely different. Me personally, I feel solid, and you can ask anybody that works with me or I work for or anything like that. 6 hours is fantastic. I feel great. Now, days that I get 8 hours, do I feel a little bit better? Yeah. Now, if I could get 8 hours, every single day, would I be a better athlete, or would my body be in a better place? I would think probably more than likely. I would like to say yes. But I'm also conditioned from my military service and things like that, where my body can operate on a little less sleep. And that might be more of a mental thing than anything else, but it's also optimal for me and how I feel mentally throughout my day. I know that I'm not going to the CrossFit Games. I realize that. That is a fantastic thought, but I also know that I'm not going to be doing that. When you look at those athletes, these are people who are elitists, who really focus every single thing around their day. I'm not a Rich Froning. I'm not a Matt Frazier. I'm not any amazing female from Iceland that can just do these amazing feats of strength in a sense, and be able to recover the next day, right? I mean, it's one of those things where they have 100% of their focus. But I guarantee you, if you were to talk to them, they take their recovery just as seriously as they do their training. Now, their heart might be more involved in their training, and their heart might be more involved in the pushing aspect of it. But if they're not recovering, they can't come back the next day and optimize their performance. Which, if they want to be as good as they want to be, they have to optimize. And that doesn't mean it's any different for us. We just might not be at that level. Us mere mortals are a little bit different, but the pieces remain the same. They still, if you're looking to optimize, you really have to focus on these different pieces. So some of the main elements that I really feel are important to recovery are all things that I've researched and looked at, and through my college and my degree, and I can't probably imagine anyone's going to necessarily disagree, maybe on the order, but they're just kind of in order. I just kind of like put them down. Sleep. Number one is sleep. People do not work on their sleep, and it sounds crazy, but like some people have to actually practice at sleeping. Being a good sleeper is kind of a funny thing to say, but there are people that are good at it, and there are people that are terrible at it. There are people that look at their phones, check out social media, watch TV the minute before they go to sleep. Your brain is completely wired and turned on and non-existent into the way that you want to be able to try to kind of like dial your mind down and be able to get some sleep. Where some people are very cognizant of how they do. They actually have a bedtime routine. They brush their teeth, they take a bath, they take a warm shower, maybe they put their feet up. Again, read a book, listen to some meditation, be mindful, reflect, write some notes down from the day that they just went through, so that way they're not thinking about it when they go to bed at night. I mean, kind of pick your poison. I mean, you can really do any of those things. But the biggest thing is really being able to sleep and to be able to sleep well. The second one, hydration, water. We take water for granted, like it's nobody's business. If we are drinking water, half the time it's got something in it, whether it's some sort of flavoring, a supplement, or whatever the case may be. If you want your body to optimize and you really want to have good quality hydration throughout your body, I don't honestly. I mean, like I said, again, there's a lot of science about how many ounces you should drink, and depending on who you are, what you are, your size. I mean, you name it, it's gonna be different. But one of those things to really kind of be focused on is honestly like what your urine looks like. I mean, anything that I've ever read or seen is really based on that. If it's clear to light yellow, like a very very light yellow, you're sitting pretty good. You're hydrated. If it starts to get darker, then you're losing that hydration, and that's very very important, obviously, for recovery. I mean, our bodies are 70% water or whatever it is nowadays, like they tell you. But so in order for your body to absorb macronutrient content, micronutrient content, to push things to cells and the tissues and all that kind of stuff, you got to have fluids. And if your fluids are low, you're cutting yourself short and you're not optimizing. Obviously, this is a guarantee. Obviously, I work for Working Against Gravity Man Nutrition. If your nutrition isn't solid, you are doing yourself a huge injustice. I'm including myself in this conversation, just so you guys know. When we're sore, when we're beat up, we had a hard day, we did a bunch of heavy stuff, we did a bunch of lifts, we had a terrible Metcon, we did Murph or whatever. JT, I did JT the other day. That thing is terrible. My shoulders and my body were just blown up. If you're not optimizing your nutrient content that's coming in, you're not going to recover even closely to the way that you need to. And you're going to be feeling it the next day or the next days. I'm one of those two-day sore people. Like my legs are sore. It's 2 days later, and I can, I see stairs and I just want to cry. But it's one of those things, where you really have to focus in and find out what your priorities are. Like this kind of stuff isn't necessarily for everybody. But if you're trying to lose weight, right? Because I know a big part of our culture and our amazing WAG team is, if you're trying to lose weight, that's a type of recovery. Your body has to understand the things that are going on before, during, and after in order for it to even want to lose a pound. If it's not sure, it's going to hold on to all those different things because it's not sure. I mean, if I was to ask you a question, you can't phone a friend. Your body can't phone a friend. Like those, you have to have that answer for me on the spot. Sometimes those things are difficult, and if you're doing that stuff to your body and you're not giving it time to understand what's happening, you are not going to lose weight the way that you want to, even if you're doing all the work. If you're doing all the work, which I think most of our people do, they work their butts off every single day. They crush the weights, they run, they do whatever it takes, and then they're frustrated when they're not losing weight. That's because your body is so focused on trying to take what it needs to recover, to get your body back to a homeostatic balance, right? Which is what your body is always trying to do. It's always trying to do the best thing for you and keep you in balance. If you're not in balance, I hate to break it to you, your weight loss is secondary to getting all your other systems back to where they need to be. Like your body is not concerned with burning fat if your liver enzymes are low. That's a kind of a crazy example, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. If your body needs things in different areas, losing weight is secondary, right? Whenever I've worked with anybody, I always talk about calories. And I talk about how it's very relatable to money. People understand money. I don't care who you are on the planet, you understand money. If you want to buy a home, if you want to buy a car, if you want to do anything, it takes money, right? It is the exact same thing for your body when it comes to calories, right? The more consistent income that you have coming in as a person, the more you know that you can save, the more that you know that you can spend, and you know where your happy medium is, so that way you can purchase that car, so then you can purchase that house, whatever the case may be. If you're doing that with calories with your body, and you're indifferent and you're inconsistent, your body doesn't know when to save or when to spend. So when you're looking at your recovery process, the more consistently you can do that, the more apt you are to be able to work on those goals of weight loss and things like that. So this doesn't necessarily translate from just muscle recovery to this. It's just body mechanics and physiology in general. So it's just one of those things that kind of just be understanding that your body needs what it needs, and if you're not giving it what it needs, it's going to hold off on maybe some of your goals that you're looking to do. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Warm up and cool down, right? That seems ridiculous. How is that going to help? How is that going to make me recovery better? Blah 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 blah. So, like I said before, I'm 34. Again, like I'm kind of playing out some of the things that I do here. I'm 34. I've been in pretty good shape, I would probably say, most of my life. I started, just like most of you, with the Brute program, Brute Compete, which is amazing. And also, sometimes it makes me almost want to like run into traffic because I'm so exhausted. Just to get it over with, just like let the pain go away. I'm so tired. But one of the things that I've talked about, because I have a coach just like any of you guys, is when I started doing this program, I really wanted to really make something that goes on in myself that I want to make a goal. I want it to be everything that it can be. So some of you guys might share the same coach. Like I have Coach Kate Hart. I've been with her for a long time now. And she helps keep me accountable. I told her one of these things when I start this Brute program is that I really want to maximize my nutrition. I really want to be on point. And since I've been doing that, I feel fantastic. I feel 100% better than I was when I was just kind of turning and burning. It was something where I wanted to come in and do the work out hard, and I didn't really care if I felt one way or the other. But when I started really pushing volume and you start doing a lot of different things, it was important to me that I really wanted to feel better, or feel good. So I really started focusing on my nutrition and things like that. But the biggest thing, honestly, it's been the biggest difference in the world, and anyone that does the Brute program will know this, is the setups for the warm-ups and the cool-downs, right? Or like they talk about like your like active rest and things like that. Ever since then, I've had a couple like really bad injuries over the last year, back stuff. I started doing the warm-ups. I feel 1,000 times better. It's really one of those things where you can do this stuff, and it only takes a few minutes. It takes 5 or 6 minutes, 10 at the most, to do a quality warm-up. Sometimes it might just be getting your mind right. If you're not doing a bunch of heavy stuff, it doesn't take a lot of time to be able to kind of really focus on and get some rest and get some recovery. For me, that warm-up is me kind of finding my center. I'm mentally preparing myself for the workouts, and it feels good. And not only that, but my muscles and my tendons and my joints are getting warmed up too. So don't neglect that warm up and that cool down. It's really important. It's kind of helping the full process of getting everything going where you need it to go, and also it burns a little extra calories, which is always a plus. One of the biggest things I want to talk about too is when it comes to like recovery in a sense, and I'm gonna get away from the nutrition part for just a second. Right, it's not just using like a foam roller. Right, I had a hard workout, I'm gonna foam roll. Great, awesome. Myofascial release is fantastic, and it helps break up tissue and increase blood flow and all that kind of good stuff too. But again, there's a lot of other systems that are going on that really need that help. Right, we talked about earlier, just really quick. We mentioned it like hormone release. There's neurological components that are going on. There's structural components that are going on, like muscles and bones and things like that. All this stuff is affected by those elements that I talked about earlier. Hormone release and how much your body is pumping, through your brain and through your body at night while you're sleeping, has to do with the how deep a sleep you get. The deeper the sleep, the more hormones and the higher production rates that you have. That helps your body rest and recover better than anything else, right? Your body does all that stuff mostly when you're sleeping. You don't recover when you're awake because you're constantly in this kind of like physical deficit in a sense. Neurologically, if anyone's ever done a heavy deadlift or a bunch of deadlifts and stuff like that, and you just feel shot, you might not be exhausted or tired, but the next thing that you touch feels stupid heavy, and it could be something really, really basic and easy. That's because your CNS, your central nervous system, is toast, because it takes so much to pick that weight up off the ground and all the way up, right? It's a big neurological shock for your body. So in order to really, again, let that piece recover, that's why they have programming the way that it is. That's why they have, certain aspects of things the way that it is. It's why they have cycles when you do a WOD and all this other kind of stuff. There's certain programs for this, this, and this, because they don't want you to burn those pieces out. And if you're not getting quality sleep, nutrition, warm up, and all that kind of good stuff like we talked about earlier, then neurologically you're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit too. So it's one of those things just again to be kind of cognizant of. Structurally, obviously your muscles, that is the most direct feedback that you'll probably get from a recovery standpoint if you're lacking, right? I mean, if you're not recovering right, you're gonna be sore, right? You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be mentally checked out. You might come in the gym and you might work out. You might work out hard, but it's not performing the way that you want to, right? You leave, you're like, oh, that's pretty good, but it wasn't everything that I had. That is definitely something that you need to kind of be, again, aware of. Like if you're walking into the gym and you're mentally checked out, your body hasn't recovered. You're not there. Whether it's been a stressful day at work, whether your kids are driving you nuts, I mean, whatever the case may be, your body isn't ready for what it's about to do. So that, again, is just something to be aware of. If you feel like that, then you need to probably look at your recovery, like what you're doing. Did I get enough sleep? Am I eating the right nutrition? Like what am I doing that is not allowing me to feel as good as I possibly can be? One of those things for sleeping that I really kind of found that has worked really well for me, and I read this somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but it's like I said, sleep like a caveman or cavewoman in some cases. Find a place, obviously your bedroom with no lights. Make it as dark as you possibly can. Cooler is better. Try to sleep naturally, in the dark with no artificial lights. If you can, wake up naturally. Obviously, that's not the case for most people who have morning jobs or have to get up and go to work or kids and things like that. But if there's time that you have a day off or the weekend, if you can sleep in a little bit and not have an alarm, that's always awesome. Let your biological clock wake you up is fantastic. I don't think I've ever woke up naturally and been tired. Now, I don't want to say never, but that's very, very, very not often have I ever woke up and not felt refreshed if I woke up on my own. So again, just kind of something to be aware of. Circulating air is a big one. Having that kind of like constant fresh air moving around. I love sleeping with a fan. I can't sleep without one personally. But if you're one of those people that kind of like is a really light sleeper, sometimes having that ambient noise can be really helpful. And just kind of like helping your mind tune out and not being tuned to every single little thing that you kind of come across. So that way you're not kind of like jumping at every single little thing. I'm a very cautious person by heart, so like any little creak or crack that I hear in my house, I'm like up. Like, what was that? So the fan helps me from being too crazy and worrying about things too much. Again, we talked about the hydration, right? So I'm kind of transitioning now back to the water. Keep it simple and just drink water. Like, it's not that bad. I mean, like, really, it's like if you got to add a bunch of stuff to your drink, it's you're making your body work harder to filter that stuff than you would necessarily need to. If you're gonna do stuff like that, like fruit infused water, is a better option. Lemon, lime, things like that. If you just need something that tastes good, or like you just want like a little bit of a different change. It's still water, right? You're not putting Crystal Light in it. You're not putting the branched chain amino acids in it, or whatever the case may be. Pre-workout for some people, all that kind of stuff. You're really looking to try and just drink as much water as you can. Let your body do what it was built to do. It's just something that you can be really on point with, and it's pretty simple. For me, one tool that I used was when I was really trying to get back into like being cognizant of drinking 128 ounces of water. When I was doing my bodybuilding, I found that when I drank a gallon of water a day, it really, really helped. It really helped me feel good. It really helped me kind of like hit some of those pieces. More specifically, I could come in harder. I felt better. I felt more awake. So that's just something that you might want to consider. If you have like a Nalgene bottle or something that you know that has a measured amount in it, for everything that you drink, add a little tick to it. Just put like a piece of like masking tape on it, have like a Sharpie or a pen, and every one that you finish, add it up. And at the end of the day, pay attention to how much you drank and do some quick math. For anybody that does CrossFit or powerlifting or weightlifting, right, we're all coffee nuts. Obviously, coffee has a lot of caffeine in it. Caffeine is great as kind of like a little bit of like a local pre-workout and things like that, and it's pretty natural and it tastes good and all that kind of good stuff. Some people do like the bulletproof coffee, and that's like a whole different subject. But remember that caffeine's also a diuretic. So a diuretic basically means that it's chasing water out of your system. So kind of like a good rule of thumb is for every cup of caffeinated drink that you have, you should replace it with 8 ounces of water at least. So if you drink a cup of coffee and a standard cup's 8, you should probably be drinking an extra 8-ounce glass of water. Again, this could be different for everybody. Some people might drink a gallon of coffee and they feel fantastic. Again, are you being optimal? Just kind of ask yourself that. If you think that you might be, fantastic. If not, maybe try and go a couple weeks without drinking any coffee, and maybe you should probably go somewhere that you're not around any people. But you maybe try that out and see if how you feel when during your workouts and things like that. I guarantee you, though, the more hydrated you are and the more consistent you are with it, the more awake that you're going to feel. It's awesome. So just kind of take those little pieces into consideration. I know myself personally. I cycle. Like if I have I hate hot coffee. So I like cold brews, like things like that. So if I do one cold, I usually follow it up with like a protein shake or thing of water. And that's just, I know how much is in there. It makes it easy for me to keep count in my head. And again, just be kind of cognizant of where I'm at. But that's just, again, it's like a nice little tool. Nutrition. Okay, so obviously we're a nutrition company. We're working against gravity, and all you amazing people are here for a special reason that has to do with nutrition, right? Nutrition is the absolute base for everything. If you do not have proper nutrition, you're not giving your body everything that it needs. Now, obviously, we here count macronutrients, and macronutrients are obviously extremely important, and we're talking about proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, right? And I'm going to kind of really get to kind of like the nuts and bolts of some post-workout recovery stuff with this nutrition part that I'm going to kind of get to here in a minute. But if you're not doing all those other things along with the nutrition piece, again, you're kind of missing part of the picture, right? If I have a puzzle and I don't have any corner pieces, then I can't finish the puzzle, and you're going to be super agitated because you just did this huge 1,000-piece puzzle. You did all this work, but my 2 corner pieces are gone. Like, what the hell's that all about? Now I'm upset and I can't go to sleep because I freaking can't find my corner pieces. Maybe that's just me because I'm crazy OCC neurotic like that. But so having the proper sleep, having the proper hydration, when you're eating the proper food, you're optimizing all those pieces so that way you can be the best person that you can be for yourself. You're going to be working towards your goals. Most of us use carbohydrates as a main proponent for our energy. Now there's people that do the keto stuff, and that's primarily fat, energy, and things like that. And people can have those discussions all day long. We're not here to talk about that, right? We look at the three majors. So those are the things that we're going to kind of talk about. But carbohydrates, right? Those are our main source of energy. That's essentially what makes us do the things that we want to do. I don't know anybody that's never had like a refeed day and got like a bump of carbs and didn't feel like fantastic doing it. So that it's really the premise behind everything that we do. When carbohydrates get broken down, I think most of us know they get broken down into sugars or glucose, and that's the stuff that's readily available in the blood for energy, right? Or there's glycogen. basically like a substructure of that, which is very much stored in the muscles. Now, when we're doing exercises, whether it's running or rowing, squatting, push-ups, whatever the case may be, anytime you're using like those major muscle groups, glycogen is your major energy source. Your cells use it to kind of like help use ATP, and ATP is like the main energy system for our bodies, and blah 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 blah. But without getting all weird, nerdy, and scientific on you, glycogen, whenever we work out, is what gets depleted. That's the thing that gets brought down the most, and that's the biggest thing that we really have to focus on helping get back. Now there's a lot of things that we can do in order to really focus more specifically. I'm going to move my computer more specifically on what we need to have for proper recovery when it comes to nutrition. Carbohydrates are a big piece of that. So I'm going to get a little bit specific here with you guys, and kind of bear with me. And if anyone has any questions or anything like that, that's either watching or sees this later, hit me up, let me know. I have a bunch of notes on this stuff, and if it's okay with the team, I can share them, or feel free to ask on the members page and things like that. But there's two types of muscle fibers, right? There's type 1, which are slow, and there's type 2, which are fast. So anytime that we do things that are explosive, it's more of our type 2. So our type 2 muscle fibers are doing more of the work. So what does that mean, essentially, is what you're probably going to ask me. So type 2 muscle fibers tend to burn more glycogen. So if you're doing more explosive, heavy, hard movements that are meant to be fast over time, you're going to be using more type 2. Type 2 use more glycogen. So if you're using more glycogen, then your recovering process, when you think about it, needs to be a little bit more purposeful towards that process, right? Towards that need. And if you're not doing that, then again you're kind of missing the boat. If you just did some sort of hero WOD with squats and pull-ups and all these kind of things, and you're busting your butt and you're doing it as fast as you possibly can, you're going to be using some of those type 2 muscles. And if you just finish it up by drinking a protein shake, you're not optimizing. You're not giving your body what it needs in order to recover. So just try and be mindful of when you're training and those kind of things. If you know that you have a harder day, maybe focus on packing some extra carbohydrates for your post-workout nutrition. And you're going to ask me, well, what do we eat for post-workout nutrition? And I'm going to go over a couple pieces of it real quick first. So, like I said, everybody knows that, or most people know that the carbohydrates are broken down into sugars. Now we have simple sugars and we have complex sugars. So complex carbohydrates tend to be more like your starchies and like your starch and your more dense stuff, where simple carbohydrates tend to be things that are higher in the glycemic index, where it spikes your insulin levels really fast, it spikes your sugar really fast. For the longest time, people were doing honey, right? Or anyone that knows like a bodybuilder or anything like that was really trying to optimize their nutrition uptake or their protein uptake, would do like jelly beans or like gummy bears after a workout, right? That stuff is simple. Those are simple sugars or simple carbohydrates, right? So it spikes your sugars in your body really quick, which reacts to and your insulin has a reaction to that. And that's basically what tells your body to start holding on to food and to nutrients to start the rebuilding process. Now, that's fine. You can't really go wrong with any type of carbohydrate after a workout. But if you really want to, again, be more purposeful, be more direct with what you're trying to do, and more facilitating to the body for your recovery, then you want to look at your complex carbohydrates. Things that have maltodextrin in them tend to be the best, and there are some supplements out there and stuff like that. Again, though, I really like when people do whole foods. But some foods that have those complex carbs that can be really useful post-workout, rices, potatoes, more specifically sweet potatoes, and things like that can be very, very optimal post-workout. So those are the kind of pieces that you really want to work on, because those slower gradual uptakes when you have a complex carbohydrate, right, they're not broken down as fast. So your body kind of slowly moves up rather than like this super fast spike. as it does that, the insulin, right? It's an anabolic hormone. It gives it more time to synthesize protein and start working on the proper processes to help your body recover. Um, like again, there's not really a wrong way. It's more of what's optimal for you. But there are maybe ways that you can be a little bit more effective with it, and doing complex carbohydrates would definitely be a way to do that, and not so much jelly beans or gummy bears and things like that. Even though some people would like to use that, you still can. I'm not going to tell you that you can't, but again, there's better ways that you could probably do it. The second piece that goes along with that is proteins.